Okay, we're out in my yard, kind of down a little closer to the road than what I normally am, but we're at the base of, I have a pair of white pines right here, and if you can see this poor white pine, it's just had the crap beat out of it. We actually lost a tree, was it last year in the wintertime? I think it was last year, and it fell down and it just knocked all these branches off. Though it's still, this lower branch here was still on, and it's just had, I mean, it's really gotten pretty beat up, but white pines are really nice tall trees, usually a straight grain wood. They were used for building ships just because of how good the wood was. It's just an amazing tree. I love them. These are very young trees, and you can see how tall they are. Around my bug out cabin we have some that are a couple hundred years old, and they are just amazing. 3 or 4 people linking hands could not wrap around their base. That's how big they are. Anyway, we had some strong winds come through and knock, you can see this branch here is knocked off, and we got another branch down here that's knocked off. And so as long as they're knocked off, I'm going to strip them of their bark. I'm going to go for the inner bark, and the inner bark of white pine properties. Here the cars go by. Like I said, we're a little closer to the road than what I normally am. But anyway, these, a lot of people, you'll hear about people who injure themselves, the woodsmen, and they're out in the woods and they injure themselves, get a cut or a bad, you know, hit themselves with an axe or something, and they'll strip off a bit of white pine bark and wrap the wound up in that, and then wrap that up with a cloth. So they bandage the wound with the white pine bark, the inner bark right up against the wound, and by the time they get home, it's, you know, a couple days later, it's healing up. So it's an amazing, it has amazing antimicrobials and really good for using in salves. You can boil it up in oil or just let it sit in oil. I like cold infusion. It's actually better with pine bark. And then later on, strain out the plant material and mix your oil with some beeswax, and you've got a wonderful healing salve. And I may make some of that. I haven't decided yet. I've just got plenty of bark. I've actually got 3 of these somewhat nice-sized branches here. Here's my hand, so you can see they're somewhat nice-sized branches that have fallen off. And we're going to make some oil out of the needles that are here. I'm going to make a culinary oil, but it's also really great for warming. And using, like, if you got cold feet, you got chilblains or something, got cold hands, you can wrap it around, or you can rub it onto your hands or your feet, and it helps get the circulation going. So, but it's basically made with cayenne and white pine needles. And white pine, the needles are easiest to, or the easiest way to ID it is to gill all pine trees, their needles, or most pine trees, their needles come off in bunches, and in a normal white pine bunch of needles there are, maybe you can see there are 5 needles. So there are 5 letters in the word white, and there are 5 needles in a bunch, and they'll come off together in one bunch, and that's the easiest way to tell them. They're also a very straight tree. Usually you don't get a whole lot of wolf trees in, wolf trees are trees that have a lot of, you know, extra splits on them or things like that. You don't get a whole lot of those in white pine. The bark is very craggy of the tree itself, but the branches, it's pretty smooth. And anyway, I'm going to be stripping these off. The other thing I'm going to make out of this is a cough syrup. And the main reason, I have plenty of cough syrups, but this year, with the flu coming in as bad as it is, it's nice to have multiple different kinds, because some people respond really well to lilac cough syrup. That's a very gentle cough syrup. Other people do better with things like, in fact, for really bad flu, some of the best maidenhair fern cough syrup makes a really good one. And then other people respond to white pine cough syrup. So having multiple different kinds of cough syrups helps in the herbal world, because not everybody responds to this the same way. Now we're in the middle of, we had a a warm front go just to the south of us yesterday, so we're warmed up. It's almost 50 degrees out here. You can see that we're getting puddles. Snow is melting. The wind's supposed to be picking up, and it's just now starting to pick up. It's going to switch around, coming to from the north, and by this evening it's supposed to be, so it's 50 degrees, right short of 50 degrees now. By this evening it's going to be over 50, or it's going to be about 15 degrees, and tomorrow's high is about 8. And then we go into the sub-zeros for about 3 days. And it's not going to be till Thursday. Today's Sunday, or Saturday. Today's Saturday. It's not going to be till Thursday that we really start warming up. So that I want to get this all stripped off, so I'm not going to do too much more talking out here. But basically what you do is you just make a cut. Sometimes I'll cut it into 4 part, and then you just grab and start peeling. And this outer bark is not really what we're looking for. We're looking for the inner white bark. That bark will, see underneath here, that bark will oxidize, so it's going to get an orangish color the longer it sits not exposed to the air. That's not a big deal. We're going to basically make a syrup. We start by making a tincture of this. We're going to set it in alcohol overnight, and then we're going to mix that with honey. But we're going to get going with this so that I'm not out here, so I can get this done, because it's going to take a little bit, because I got 3 branches to do. But I'm going to get going on this and get back to you on the inside, hopefully before the weather starts changing and it starts getting cold. Even though the wind, I can feel the wind shifting around right now. Okay, so I've been gathering it. This is my second basket here of white pine bark. The wind's starting to pick up now, so I think we're going to call it quits for right at this moment for gathering, just because if there's other weak branches up there, I certainly don't want to be underneath taking the pine bark off while the other branches might be falling down. Now, as you can see, we've got both a little bit of outer bark on some of this, and then of course we've also got the inner bark. If you're going to use just a bandage, like if you cut yourself on your hand and you want to just wrap a quick thing of pine bark around, you're probably going to want to keep with the inner bark. And the main reason is that's where the medicinal value is, so you want to get that in as close as you can. And also you can see how flexible it is. I mean, I can't do it with one hand, but you can literally tie this stuff in knots. Yeah, sure I can. I could if I had 2 hands, but of course I'm holding the camera with one hand, so there we go. See, you can literally tie this stuff in knots. So you can wrap it around a wound on a finger, or if you've got a big wound, you can wrap several of these things around, on your leg, and then bandage that up with a cloth around there. So if that's what you're looking for, is just the bandage, you're going to want to try to get, when you do the first peel of the bark, let's see if I can find one here that, now this one here, you can kind of see this one's a little bit, oh, here we go, here's a good one. I didn't get much of the inner bark off with this one. You can kind of see, you can almost see through to the outer bark. So then underneath that is all the inner bark, like this, that has nothing in it. So you try to do a shallow peel first and then do a heavier peel afterwards. Because if you do a heavy peel and then now, like these ones can still be peeled, you can break this and start peeling it off, the outer stuff off. But that's such a pain in the butt. It's much easier just to do a shallow peel while it's still on the tree, like this one was, and then leave a lot of the bark on the tree, and then use the bulk of the tree to peel the little pieces of just the inner bark off. Having said that, we're not going to, I'm not making this into bandages. We're going to make this as a syrup, and we're going to make it first into a tincture, and then we're going to turn that into a syrup. And the syrup can be used multiple different ways. You can take a tablespoon of it to help soothe a sore throat or soothe a cough, or you can take it, use it as a gargle, get some boiling water, pour it into a cup, pour a couple tablespoons of sugar, of the syrup, of the pine bark syrup into that, and then gargle with it, spit it out a few times, and then drink the last of it. And that will, the antimicrobials of the white pine will get in and get rid of that, get rid of the bacteria and stuff that may be causing your sore throat. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do first. I'm not going to worry about the outer bark. Now, when I don't worry about the outer bark, I'm taking this into consideration. We have lichen on the outer bark. Trees, like all wise beings, tend to be gardeners. And trees are these trees, white pine, are no exception. If you run your hand over them, they have a green color to them. You also can see the lichen here. So if I'm not going to strip the outer bark off, I'm taking the chance that I'm working with something that may affect the final product. I don't worry about it because first of all, the lichen usually just adds a little bit more to the healing, and the moss and things that grow on trees, for the most part, unless I get a big clump on it, doesn't do anything to take away from the medicinal value. In fact, many times it adds to it. So for me, I don't worry about it, but if that's something that concerns you, if you're looking at that green stuff going, ooh, there's green, and look, that lichen, and it will affect the final product, whether it makes it stronger or weaker, or makes it whatever, that's something you have to keep in mind. So if that's something that concerns you, you're going to only want to work with the inner bark that has none of the green on. Doesn't bother me at all, though. This is the way I've always done it. And I am going to, this plant material will be strained out, so I don't really have to worry about it. The fact that you can kind of see how that comes off on your fingers, and you don't know that you really want that into your final product. That's okay. We're going to be straining this through cheesecloth.